that the only Lorenzo you talked to?
That was the only Lorenzo I talked to. He was the first result on the Facebook of my name search, and I wasn't going to go through the other hundreds. So yeah.
So that was just a shot in the dark.
Yeah. So I friended him semi-ironically about 5 years ago now. When I was kind of drunk and I was on Facebook, and he was the first person who came up with my name, and I shot him a friend request, and we started talking as you saw initially do you like your name, asking jokey questions, but what you don't see in the film is that he and I actually had a lot more in common than meets the eye at first. For example, he's only a couple of years younger than me, which makes him pretty much the same age. If I wanted to be a filmmaker when I was younger, he wanted to be a musician, and then suddenly we were recommending films and music to each other that he and I already had liked, and I was like, oh, I think we should probably stay in touch, and we did so for 4 years before I finally met him in person. So, yeah.
So, how easy was it to pitch this idea for this film to come just visit him? I mean, had this happened when you had already developed a friendship?
Yeah, so I actually didn't really tell him beforehand that I was going to make a film. In fact, I didn't even know I was making a film while I was there. I was just capturing a lot of this footage on my DSLR that I brought along the way. And so afterwards, I said to him, dude, I have 4 hours of footage of this. This is a lot more than I anticipated. I'd love to make it into an actual film. And he was just very entertaining with the idea and said, yeah, sure, whatever. And he liked it a lot. So
that's great.
Yeah.
How long were you there?
So initially I was supposed to spend a weekend with him, but I ended up spending closer to a week with him because I just kept saying, as my bus was about to go out of his hometown by the Argentinian border in Uruguay, I was like, dude, I can stay another day if you wanted me. And he was like, oh, absolutely. So that's why. I think he was just trying to skip class, so and I was just out for that. So
sure. So you just made this because you wanted to. There was no school assignment to it.
No. This happened
But he was skipping class.
He was skipping class. I was on vacation over the summer, so
right.
between classes. Yeah, there's no mandated project for which I did this for. I just did it because I had a lot of footage, and I wanted to the whole style of cutting it really quickly is something I'd been meaning to do, and I thought what better way to do it than with random footage that you capture, but you're less invested in how the outcome of it. So yeah, that's what.
It feels like months of footage, not 4 hours.
Really?
Yeah. That editing process must have been almost dreamlike, trying to, I guess, create a through line, because it didn't feel random. None of it felt random. It felt like there was it felt like you planned all of those shoots as opposed to a found footage film. That's there's a connectedness to all of the footage that you included that it feels like we get to know both of you and feel your friendship grow over the course of it. It's 7 minutes long?
It's about 6 minutes long. Yeah, that's very nice. Wow, I've actually never heard that the feeling longer than it actually was. But yeah, it was even though people ask how long have you known this guy in person, a week. I feel like he's one of my closest friends in the world because of how much we've talked about issues, not just as pen pals on the internet, but in person. So I'm happy that it kind of captured. Maybe it wasn't literally 4 months, but had the significance. Because, the past 4 months for me haven't been nearly as significant as that 1 week that I was with him. So you know what I mean? There are periods in your life that take more weight than others.
What did you find were things that were surprising to you that you shared with him, other than just your name and tastes in music and movies? Because you mentioned, the shared experience of living in a former Spanish colony, right? And I guess that would be an impetus for a conversation, or that's the second thing after sharing the name.
Right.
But how deep did that go?
Other than my very cursory knowledge of Spanish, in real life, not as much. But I actually wish, now that you've mentioned this is my one foremost thematic. I feel failure of the film is that it wasn't as forthcoming with the whole former Spanish colony aspect, because it appears in the beginning of the film, but I think that during that crazy cutting sequence toward the end, I should have thrown more references to the fact that this was only possible because he and I got the same name by virtue of the fact of having been both from Spanish colonies. So this is an incidental, possibly positive outcome of colonialism, just uniting two people on opposite sides of the world who had nothing else in common besides their name. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, that it's there within the film. It could possibly be evinced a bit more. I'm not gonna cut this ever again. I just don't know how I do it. Like show a Spanish galleon like going across the ship. I just don't know.
I mean, the format of how you cut this is it's a really interesting thing for documentary because it has there is the found footage verite feeling to it, but it does have a dreamlike quality. You know, like sharing someone else's emotional process as opposed to it being like a story-driven film. You know, it feels you're showing us, you're sharing the feeling of being there, as opposed to having it be a story about two Lorenzos, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a really fascinating thing. Thank you for screening with us.
Thank you.